Beneath the stillness of ancient temples, where wind whistles through wooden beams and prayer flags flutter under skies stained with wisdom, there lies a secret so profound and yet so simple, it defies the noise of modern health trends and whispers instead of eternal truths. It is not hidden in laboratories or behind subscription paywalls. It lives humbly in the bowls of saffron-robed monks who rise before dawn, bow in silence and nourish their bodies, not only to survive, but to awaken. This is not merely a diet. It is a philosophy, a way of living, eating, breathing and being. Rooted in mindfulness, steeped in simplicity and blessed with the presence of every grain of rice and every drop of water. These monks, many of whom live beyond 100 years, do not chase longevity. They live rightly and longevity follows. In the heart of this sacred discipline is an understanding so piercing, so transformative, that it can shift not just your meals, but your mind, your purpose, and your relationship with suffering itself. For what you eat is never just what's on your plate. It is how you see the world, how you honor your body, how you treat every moment as a prayer. Let us begin not with what they eat, but with why they eat. Monks do not eat for pleasure, though their meals may bring peace. They do not eat for status, though their discipline commands reverence. They eat to sustain the body as a vehicle for awakening, and nothing more. In doing so, they free themselves from the endless cycle of desire and aversion, the twin flames that burn away clarity. In every bite, they practice letting go. There is no breakfast buffet, no midnight snack, no obsession with calories or macros. There is instead deep listening. Before a monk takes food, he examines his state of mind. Am I eating out of hunger or habit? Is there craving or calmness? Each answer is a mirror. Each decision, a step on the path to liberation. Their meals begin with gratitude, a chant, a pause, a moment of reverence for the countless conditions that made the food possible. The farmer, the soil, the rain, the sun, the unseen hands. In this simple act of mindfulness, the food becomes sacred and the eater becomes aware. Their portions are small yet sustaining, bowls of warm rice, boiled greens, fermented vegetables, perhaps a touch of tofu or sesame. Meals are light, but full of life. Nothing processed, nothing fried in distraction, nothing eaten while scrolling, watching or rushing. The food is chewed slowly, digested completely, and honored thoroughly. Science now echoes what these silent sages have known for centuries, that intermittent fasting, plant-based diets, and mindful eating reduce inflammation, balance the gut, and extend life. But where science ends in hypothesis, the monks begin in practice, and practice, day after day, becomes clarity. But to reduce their vitality to just their diet would be to miss the deeper nourishment. Their minds, like still waters, are fed daily by meditation, their spirits, anchored in purpose, their lives, structured by simplicity and rhythm. They do not snack on chaos or feast on drama. They sip stillness and dine on discipline. They rise with the sun and sleep with the moon. They walk barefoot on the earth and bow to the breath of life. They laugh, but not too loud, speak, but not too much. Their bodies are lean not from vanity, but from movement, sweeping floors, carrying buckets, climbing hills to beg for alms. And in each movement, there is mindfulness, in each action, a prayer. And yes, they live long, but more importantly, they live well, without regret, without rush, without the constant gnawing of more. Their secret is not in a miracle food or a hidden herb. Their secret is in how they relate to the world, to pain, to joy, to food, to breath. This is only the beginning. But let us go deeper, because what these monks truly consume is not just food. They consume stillness. They feast on restraint. They drink the silence between desires, and in that silence, They hear what most of us cannot. The voice of the present moment. Modern life teaches us to eat for reward, to celebrate, to comfort, to escape. But monks eat to return to their center, to return to awareness, to return to the sacred simplicity that lies in every bite, if only we slow down enough to feel it. For them, food is not an escape, it is an invitation back to life. And what they reject is just as sacred as what they accept. They reject artificiality not just in ingredients, but in intent. No preservatives, no flavor enhancers, no manipulation of taste to override the body's natural wisdom. The tongue must not be seduced into excess. The mind must not be drugged by stimulation. Instead, meals are made to harmonize with the seasons, with the needs of the body, with the clarity of the mind. They reject excess, not because excess is evil, but because it clouds perception. The fuller the belly, the foggier the mind. The monks understand that enlightenment is not found in abundance, but in enough, just enough. And in this just enough, a profound contentment blooms, one that billionaires search for in vain. They reject impulsivity. No food is taken without reflection. No meal consumed without intention. They ask, again and again, is this necessary? Is this kind? Will this lead to more peace or more attachment? And in asking these questions, they train their minds to become disciplined, their hearts to become gentle. And yet within this discipline, there is no punishment. There is no shame. There is only compassion. If hunger arises before the designated hour, they observe it. They greet it like a passing cloud. They do not push it away, nor do they indulge it. They breathe through it, and it passes, because hunger, like all sensations, is impermanent. This is the true nourishment, the ability to observe without reacting, to feel without drowning, to notice without clinging. This is the diet of awareness, and it feeds the soul far more than any superfood or supplement. But let us speak of the body too, the vessel of awakening. You will notice something curious in the lives of these monks. Their bodies are light, agile. Their skin carries the softness of someone unburdened by toxins. Their eyes, calm and alert. They are not muscular in the way of athletes, nor thin in the way of models. They are simply right-sized for their purpose. Nothing in excess, nothing lacking. They do not bulk, they do not cut, they do not measure themselves in mirrors or in numbers. Their body is a tool, not a trophy. It is revered, not worshipped. It is cared for, not obsessed over. And so it remains strong, flexible and vital, well into their 90s and beyond. Now consider their rhythm. The monks eat only once or twice a day, always before noon. This is not intermittent fasting as a trend. This is ancient knowing. The digestive fire, according to both Ayurveda and Buddhist teachings, is strongest when the sun is highest. To eat with the sun is to honor the body's natural cycles, to eat when hungry, and stop when satisfied, not stuck. After the meal, they do not collapse into chairs or chase screens. They walk slowly, mindfully, often barefoot, touching the earth with every step, grounding their energy and aiding digestion with every movement. In this walking there is no rush, only presence, each step a mantra, each breath a reminder. Their evenings are light, perhaps a herbal tea, maybe a piece of fruit for the sick or the elderly. But more often than not, there is nothing. And in that nothing, the body begins its sacred repair. The organs rest, the blood clears, the mind softens, and by morning they rise renewed, without coffee, without sugar, without needing to recover from their food. And what of sickness? Sickness is met not with panic, but with presence. The monks do not fear illness. They observe it, learn from it, rest with it. Their immune systems, strengthened by years of clean eating, stable routines, and meditative calm, often prevent disease. And when sickness does come, it is softened by the peace of mind they carry. Because stress, the true killer, has no place to root itself in a life of such intentionality. You must understand this. Their longevity is not accidental. It is not genetic luck. It is a byproduct of living in accordance with truth, of aligning daily choices with eternal principles, of seeing the body not as a battlefield for desire, but as a temple of awareness. And so their diet becomes more than food. It becomes a path, a dharma, a mirror, a teacher. It teaches them when to pause, when to say no, when to offer gratitude, when to endure, when to let go. It teaches them that health is not in the perfection of the body, but in the serenity of the soul. And perhaps that is what we hunger for most. Not six-pack abs, not glowing skin, not the latest nutritional trend, but peace, the kind that cannot be bought, bottled, or baked. The kind that arises when we sit down with our food, fully, humbly, reverently, and finally truly eat. To eat like a monk is to slow down enough to taste your own life, to chew your experiences, to digest your suffering, to nourish what is real, and release what is not. And in this way, you do not just live longer, you live wiser. You begin to see that every meal is a sermon, every bowl a sutra, every bite a bridge to awakening. And still, we have only grazed the surface. Because beneath the bowls, beneath the rituals, beneath even the breath, lies something far more formidable: discipline. A discipline so quiet it is mistaken for ease, so humble it is often ignored, so powerful it can bend the arc of one's entire life toward awakening. This is the discipline of consistency, of returning to what matters, over and over again, regardless of mood, circumstance, or preference. The monks do not wait for motivation. They do not argue with laziness. They do not negotiate with craving. They rise when the bell rings. They walk when the sun is still hiding. They sit in silence, even when the mind screams for distraction. And they eat, not when they want, but when the body in its natural rhythm is truly ready to receive. Discipline is their sanctuary, not the harsh kind built from punishment and shame, but the quiet kind built from love, love for the path, love for the truth, love for the self, not as ego, but as a vessel of awakening. They understand this, that freedom is not the absence of structure, it is found within structure. Just as a river flows with greatest strength when bound by its banks, so too does the spirit flow with deepest clarity when given the form of sacred routine. In the modern world, we confuse freedom with indulgence. We believe that to do whatever we want whenever we want is liberation. But the monks have learned otherwise. They have seen how the ego, when unchallenged, becomes a tyrant, how desire, when always obeyed, becomes an addiction, and how choice, when unexamined, becomes a prison. So they choose discipline, and in that choice they find real power. A power not over others, but over themselves. A power to witness thought without being swallowed by it, to feel emotion without being ruled by it, to walk toward discomfort without fleeing, to face hunger, grief, fatigue, and uncertainty, not with fear but with grace. And this is what separates them, not their robes, not their shaved heads, not their chants or their incense or their temples, but this inner architecture of strength, this ability to show up fully, faithfully, again and again, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. Because in those unseen moments, character is forged, not in front of crowds, but in the quiet of the cell, not in applause, but in solitude, not in the feast, but in the fast. This is where real nourishment happens, in the silence of right effort. And it is from this effort that gratitude blooms, not the performative kind, not the kind that posts blessed, after every meal or mutters thanks with no thought, but the raw, aching kind. The kind that feels the earth's weight in a single grain of rice, that understands the infinity behind every vegetable. The rain, the sun, the soil, the seed, the sweat of the farmer, the death of the insect, the sacrifice of time. To eat with this kind of awareness is to feel reverence for life itself, and so the monks give thanks, not just with words, but with presence, with chewing slowly, with sitting upright, with not wasting a single morsel, with washing their bowls mindfully, with feeding others when possible, with not asking for more than needed, with living simply, so others may simply live. Gratitude for them is not an emotion, it is a discipline, a way of seeing, a way of being, and it transforms every meal into a meditation. Even suffering becomes sacred when met with gratitude. For the monks know this truth, that suffering is not the enemy, it is the teacher. And like all good teachers, it shows up when least expected, stays longer than welcomed, and leaves behind wisdom if you are willing to listen. Their ability to endure hardship, hunger, cold, fatigue, loneliness, is not because they are numb or superhuman. It is because they understand impermanence. They have watched pain rise and fall like breath. They have bowed to it, walked with it, and learned not to fear it. This is what gives them resilience, not toughness, not denial, but relationship. They relate to difficulty differently. They do not fight it. They do not resent it. They do not dramatize it. They meet it with open eyes and open hearts, and so it loses its power. This is why, even in the face of illness or aging or death, they remain composed. They have practiced dying every day, dying to ego, to desire, to the illusion of control, and in doing so, they become unshakable, not because they do not feel, but because they do fully, deeply, without flinching. They have tasted the bitterness of sorrow and stayed. They have witnessed fear and not turned away. They have sat in silence with their own shadows until those shadows revealed themselves to be wounded light. And so they become trustworthy companions to themselves, able to hold all that arises, the joy, the rage, the confusion, the hope, with compassion and clarity. This is the greatest nourishment of all, self-companionship. To become the kind of person you would want to eat a final meal with. To become someone whose inner world is not a battlefield, but a refuge, and from that refuge, to feed the world. Because monks do not live for themselves. Their practice is not selfish, it is service. Every act of restraint, every bow, every mindful bite, is an offering to the collective, a reminder that another way is possible, that we do not have to consume everything, that we do not have to be ruled by desire, that peace is not a fantasy, but a practice. And so their eating becomes activism, not the loud kind, not the angry kind, but the kind that ripples through time, the kind that plants seeds in those who watch, who listen, who feel the depth of what it means to truly be nourished. You may never wear their robes, you may never enter their monasteries, but you can eat like them, not by copying their recipes, but by embodying their presence, by sitting with your plate, by tasting your life, by asking, am I feeding my distractions or my devotion? The answer will change everything. It will change how you shop, how you cook, how you sit, how you thank, how you walk after eating, how you speak to your body, how you treat the planet, how you relate to others at the table, and it will change, most profoundly, how you relate to yourself. Because to eat like a monk is to love yourself enough to care, to choose clarity over comfort, stillness over stimulation, enough over excess, and presence over performance. This is the quiet revolution, one bite at a time, one breath at a time, one choice at a time, until discipline becomes devotion, until gratitude becomes your ground, until suffering becomes your teacher, until food becomes your path, and you, not in some distant lifetime, but in this one, become free. Free not because you have escaped the world, but because you have entered it fully, with eyes open, with hands steady, with a bowl in your lap, and a prayer, not on your lips, but in your way of living. This is the secret diet, not of monks, but of the awakened. But let us walk further still, for the nourishment of a monk is not limited to the meal itself. It is woven into every gesture, every footstep, every act of living. In their world, eating is simply one facet of a greater jewel, the jewel of mindful action. They do not rush to the dining hall, they do not barge through doors, they step, they pause, they breathe. Every movement is deliberate, every motion guided by awareness. To them, action without mindfulness is like food without nutrition, empty, compulsive, and ultimately harmful. This awareness seeps into everything: the way they clean their bowls, the way they sweep their floors, the way they fold their robes. Even the way they sit is an act of reverence. The spine upright, the gaze gentle, the breath slow, not out of stiffness or show, but out of presence, a deep remembrance that the body itself is a temple. And this is where the deepest teaching lies, in how you do anything. You reveal how you relate to everything. You can eat the perfect meal, but if you eat it with haste, you are digesting haste. You can drink the purest tea, but if you sip with distraction, you are drinking forgetfulness. You can meditate for hours, but if you rise with irritation, the silence has not entered you. The monks understand this, that awakening is not a moment of lightning, but the steady accumulation of conscious moments. That peace is not discovered on mountain tops, but in the mundane, in peeling vegetables, in mending a robe, in standing silently in line for food, in bowing to the one who served. Each of these acts becomes sacred, not because of the ritual, but because of the awareness behind it. This is why they appear radiant, even in old age, why their eyes shine though their bodies wrinkle, why their presence commands stillness without a single word. It is not charisma, it is coherence, an inner harmony born of thousands of choices made in truth. They do not live fragmented lives. They are not one person in the morning and another by night. They are whole, aligned. Every word, every breath, every bite, synchronized with the truth of impermanence, of interconnection, of non-self. And because of this they suffer less, not because they escape suffering, but because they do not add to it. They do not resist what arises. They do not build stories around discomfort. They do not cling to pleasure or push away pain. They allow life to move through them, like wind through an open window, touching, yes, but never trapping. And in this openness, there is great freedom, a freedom that is unfamiliar to most, because most of us are not living, we are reacting, we are bracing, we are guarding, we are craving, and fearing and chasing and avoiding, and calling it life. But monks live differently. They allow joy, they allow sorrow, they allow hunger, fatigue, confusion. They bow to it all, not as victims, but as witnesses, as participants in the great unfolding, not trying to control but to understand. And what does this mean for us? It means we too can shift. We may not live in temples, but we can build a temple in our breath. We may not chant at dawn, but we can rise with intention. We may not have silence all around us, but we can cultivate silence within. We may not have teachers watching over us, but we can become students of each moment. It begins with one choice: to stop, to sit, to breathe before the meal, to look at your food not as a distraction, but as a gift, to ask, who grew this? Who transported it? What had to die for this to be here? What lives will this nourish? To eat not with guilt, but with grace. To eat not as a performance, but as a prayer. This changes everything, not because it solves all problems, but because it aligns you with reality. And reality, when embraced, brings peace. you begin to see that there is no separation between body and mind, that how you treat your digestion is how you treat your emotion, that how you approach your plate is how you approach your purpose. If you rush food, you rush life. If you numb with food, you numb with distraction. If you fear food, you fear nourishment. But if you sit with food, truly sit, you begin to sit with yourself, and this is where the deeper hunger lies. Not for calories, but for connection. Not for sugar, but for sincerity. Not for fullness, but for freedom. And the monks, without saying a word, remind us of this. They remind us that food is not the opposite of spirit, it is its partner, that the physical is not lesser than the spiritual. It is the doorway into it, that the body, when honored, becomes the bridge to truth. This is why their diet is sacred, not because of what it includes, but because of what it reflects. It reflects discipline, and therefore freedom. It reflects gratitude, and therefore reverence. It reflects simplicity, and therefore clarity. It reflects compassion, and therefore peace. So the next time you eat, do not ask only, is this healthy? Ask, is this true? Is this food aligned with my value? Is this pace aligned with my breath? Is this choice aligned with who I want to become? Because every bite is a vote, not just for your body, but for your life. And when those votes are made in presence, you do not need a perfect plan. You only need faith in the process, in your inner wisdom, in the practice of returning again and again to the center. This is what the monks do. They return. They return when the mind wanders, when the body aches, when desire flares, when doubt whispers. They return, not to some destination, but to this moment, to this breath, to this bowl, to this bite. And in returning they remember, and in remembering, they are fed. And in being fed, not just with food, but with awareness, they become luminous, not because they try to shine, but because they have nothing left to block the light. And now we arrive at the final bowl. Not the final answer, not the final truth, but the final bowl, humble, warm, and waiting. In it, you will not find a miracle grain, no ancient herb, no elixir for immortality. You will find rice. Just rice, simple steaming rice, grown with care, harvested with effort, offered in stillness. But in this bowl is the universe. In this bowl is every sunrise that kissed the field, every raindrop that fell with patience, every hand that touched seed and soil, every act of unseen labor, every silence before a morning bell, every chant echoing across bamboo halls, every step walked barefoot under monsoon clouds. This bowl holds more than food. It holds a way of life, a way of seeing, a way of being. And when you sit before it, truly sit, you are no longer just a consumer. You are a witness, a participant in the sacred exchange of energy, a momentary steward of all that lives and dies and lives again. This is why the monks bow, not to the food, but to the life behind it, to the lives beneath it, to the living truth within it. They know this bowl is fleeting, this body is borrowed, this breath is a gift. So they bow, and they eat, and they awaken, not to theories, not to distant heavens, but to this here, now, to the miracle of chewing, to the grace of digestion, to the quiet revolution of enough. And in doing so they become what the world has forgotten. They become full, not in stomach, but in soul. And this is what you are invited into, not a diet, a devotion, not a lifestyle, a liberation, to walk differently, to sit differently, to eat differently, to live differently, to let your actions become sermons, your meals become meditations, your body become a vessel not of performance, but of peace. You are not what you eat, you are how you eat. You are not what you consume. You are what you cherish. You are not defined by your craving. You are defined by what you are willing to be present for. And the monks, those quiet stewards of inner truth, are not here to impress you. They are not here to convert you. They are here to remind you that you have always known this. That beneath the noise, beneath the hunger, beneath the scrolling and the striving, you too have heard it. The bell, calling you home, to the silence before the meal, to the breath before the bite, to the moment before the choice. And if you answer, not tomorrow, not when life calms down, but now, you may find what they have found. Not immortality, but presence. Not escape, but engagement. Not answers, but alignment. And in that alignment, your food will change. Your days will change. Your body will change. And most of all, your relationship with life will become what it was always meant to be, an offering, a practice, a path. And so, dear traveler of this sacred path, as you rise from this meal of words, carry not just their weight, but their warmth. Bow to your own bowl, taste your own breath, and walk slowly, kindly. Awake, the bell has already rung. Now eat with your whole being, and live.